Hip-hop is home to a ton of great albums from a bunch of great artists, but on occasion, big artists release albums that are so bad they're embarrassing. Whether it's an album with over 100 songs to boost sales, or an album so bad you basically quit making music, there are a lot of examples of this. So today we're going to be looking into some of hip-hop's most embarrassing albums, starting off with Chance the Rapper's Big Day. Chance the Rapper was and still is a beloved artist, but after releasing this album, it heavily damaged his career and basically is the reason he isn't really putting out music anymore. And of course, I can't make this video without talking about this album. After releasing his debut mixtape 10 Day in 2012, Chance got a decent amount of attention, especially locally. The next year, he released his classic mixtape Acid Rap, with features from plenty of talented artists, which led to Chance really moving up in the music industry. He began touring, was nominated for Best Mixtape of the Year at BET Awards, he was featured in commercials, and also performed at Lollapalooza. Then in 2014, he was a XXL freshman, back when that still mattered, and started appearing in tons of other things in the following years. He also met Kanye in 2014, his favorite artist of all time, and they eventually began to work together on Kanye's album The Life of Pablo. When this album released in 2016, Chance was all over it, with writing credits and verses on multiple songs. It was also on this album that Chance said, "I met Kanye West, I'm never gonna fail," which became very iconic and ironic for a few different reasons. He also released Coloring Book, which was his third mixtape, and it hit number 8 on the Billboard 200. He was on top of the world and had been working with big brands. He threw a festival in Chicago, he performed at the Grammys and won 3, and he also teased a collab album with Kanye. Chance the Rapper was definitely on his way to becoming a certified A-list celebrity, but then on July 26 of 2019, he released his debut studio album, The Big Day. Nearly a decade into his career, Chance the Rapper released his debut studio album, and it was entirely dedicated to his wife, Kirsten Corley. The Big Day was heavily influenced by his marriage in March of that year, and it wasn't received too poorly by critics, but the internet absolutely tore it up. I mean, I'm sure you guys remember this meme.
Oh, I love my wife. I love my wife.
This became such a big meme that he even has a page on Know Your Meme explaining the entire situation. Genius even made a whole video describing every single time Chance mentioned his wife on this album. And I do feel bad for Chance because honestly, I didn't think this album was like that bad. But then again, I'm fairly impressed by anything with melody or rhythm or any of those things, so maybe I'm not the best judge. Regardless, following the release of this album, his career took a turn for the worse. He started arguing back and forth with fans on Twitter who were critiquing his album. He was arguing back and forth with one guy for a little bit, constantly getting ratioed in the process. Some people even thought he was hacked. He also canceled his tour because of what people speculated was low ticket sales, although Chance said he had to cancel the tour to spend time with his family. And he did just have a second kid at the time, but because there were BOGO sales going on for tickets and the tour had been postponed. However, apparently all of this could have been avoided if he just listened to his manager. Chance had recently fired his manager, Pat Corcoran, and even more recently, Pat filed a lawsuit against him. The lawsuit was mostly about money that Pat was owed. However, he also mentioned The Big Day. Pat said that Chance was ignoring his advice about the album and even blamed him for poor reception and poor ticket sales, which basically confirms the theory that Chance canceled his tour because of ticket sales. But somehow, it gets worse. Chance was seen dancing with some random girls, which had people questioning how he could make a whole album dedicated to his wife and then do that. Then about a year after that, it came out that the two were getting a divorce. Chance said, "God has blessed us with 2 beautiful girls who we will continue to raise together. We kindly ask for your privacy and respect as we navigate this transition." So honestly, I feel doubly bad that not only did he get clowned for dedicating his debut studio album to his wife, but then they got divorced not too long after. Regardless, I think Chance's situation is unfortunate because he is very talented. Since the Big Day incident in 2019, he hasn't released an album. However, he has put out some solid singles, and clearly a lot of people still want music from him, but he really did hurt his career after that album. Sorry for the outfit change, my camera corrupted part of the thing, whatever. But while Chance the Rapper was not expected to make a bad album like that, it's not too surprising that Ice Spice's debut studio album was a bit embarrassing. After a bunch of hit singles in 2022 and 2023, Ice Spice announced her album Y2K in 2024 and announced the album cover as well. And off rip, a lot of people thought the cover was trash. I mean, the album name is literally on the trash can. A fan posted a picture where they changed the album cover up a bit, and Ice Spice responded saying, "You thought you made this better too, Delulu," which a lot of people thought was pretty rude to a fan who just wanted to post a better version of the picture. Anyway, the lead single of this album was called Think You the Shit Fart. She was trying to play on this popular meme, and this song was not taken seriously at all by fans. It just became a meme song and went viral a little bit on TikTok, especially after releasing like a few good songs like Boy's a Liar, for example. It just seemed like Ice Spice was going backwards. Regardless, her debut album Y2K came out in July of 2024, and it wasn't very well received. One fan said on a Google review, "I actually liked a couple of Ice Spice's previous songs, so I was hopeful she'd bring something fresh and new to this project. Unfortunately, she did not. It's very similar beats with very similar bass notes and very similar lyrics over and over and over again. I feel like she could have the potential to make better music if she stopped trying to drop new projects or deluxe versions of existing projects every few months, and instead just focus on making a really good, high-quality album." I had no idea people used Google reviews, but this was a very accurate take on the situation. Many fans had similar complaints. Fast food type music. You already know what to expect, but if you're in the mood for it, then it's not too bad. This is what happens when folks gas up straight garbage. It stays garbage. And don't get me started on all of the poop bars she had throughout this whole album. It was just way too much. Like, it was funny for maybe one song, but after that, it's too much. She said, "I'm Miss Poopy, but I never smell" on BB Belt. Brody took a fake perk, now he got the tummy runs on Plenty Sun, and "I'm the shit, I'm that bitch, I'm his poopy" on Deli. Deli was actually an old song, but you get the point. There was also the hilarious line on her song Gimme a Light, on which she said, "Big Ice, I don't need a writer," to which she followed up, "I miss poopy like I need a diaper." Nobody can make a poop bar sound good, and Ice Spice definitely cannot.
"I'm his poopy like I need a diaper." "I'm his poopy like I needed a diaper."
No. Bro, come on, bro. Bitch, you just said, "Bitch, I'm the shit, bitch, the fart." Come on, bro, that was your very last drop. Holy shit, this bitch sucks. Sorry, bro, that shit got me mad. What the fuck? Bro, she literally last song was like, "I'm the bitch, you the shit, bitch. You not even the fart." Now you gonna say, "I'm in shit, he's the poopy, I need to fart on him." What'd she say?
One person even said on Twitter, "At this point we gotta ask if she got a scat fetish, cause what is with the poop, diaper, and fart bars?" To which Ice Spice responded saying, "I got a shitting on bitches fetish." In defense of Ice Spice, this album did sell 28,000 copies first week. Ice Spice seemingly responded to the haters saying, "Like did 15K, so thank you to everyone who supported me then, and thank you to all the new supporters. Y2K World Tour been so fun that these numbers are cool and all, but bitch, you should have seen that Boston crowd last night. And while the numbers may have looked good on paper, I feel like the overall support wasn't." On top of this, Ice Spice was getting into all sorts of beefs and controversies around this time that definitely were not a good look for her, because in a lot of them, she seemed like the bad guy. She also released a deluxe and like another deluxe for Y2K, but that didn't help. And at the very least, Ice Spice's albums didn't do too bad commercially, because French Montana had to pull some crazy stunts to boost his album sales. I'm not going to go too deep into French Montana's come up because he's been in the game forever. He's released a ton of mixtapes, a handful of albums, and tons of huge singles over the span of his career. He started blowing up a ton though with songs like Pop That, Lockjaw, No Stylist, and of course his biggest song ever, Unforgettable. But one thing that was always noticeable about French Montana's songs was the features. Most people weren't really tuning in to Unforgettable or No Stylist to hear French, they wanted to hear Sway Lee and Drake. But this isn't something that French Montana seemed to realize, at least until his numbers started going down. His place in hip-hop is made most obvious when you think about that picture Diddy posted on Instagram with Jay-Z, Nas, and Kendrick with French Montana photoshopped out. Diddy didn't even crop him out, he went through the effort of photoshopping French Montana out so he could say, "Three kings, three great friends, love you guys." And I would say, and I have said, this had to have been heartbreaking for French, but nowadays it's probably a good thing looking back on it. Regardless, in 2019, his third studio album, Montana, sold 25,000 copies first week, which is about half of what his last album sold. Not only that, but he was also caught in a fake streaming controversy around this time as well. I went into more detail on this in a video I did called The Biggest Scam in the Music Industry, so if you are interested in botted streams, feel free to check it out after this vid. And despite how crazy faking your streams is, things would would get even worse for French. In April of 2020, French Montana made one of the biggest mistakes of his career when he said that he has more hits than Kendrick Lamar. More specifically, he said to Complex, "I mean, honestly, you could put somebody like Kendrick Lamar next to me on the same stage at a festival. I might outshine him. Not because I'm a better rapper or whatever it is. It's just that I got more hits." This sent the internet into a frenzy with everyone making fun of him. He even had Young Thug clowning on him.
Stupid ass nigga said he got more hits than Kendrick Lamar. Fool.
And everyone on the internet agreed collectively that statistically speaking and musically speaking, Kendrick Lamar is better.
Not only have you never had a #1 hit, Kendrick has had 8 laying in the top 10, while you've only had 2. Still an accomplishment, but it's nowhere near enough for you to be like, oh, I got more hits than Kendrick Lamar.
And this is kind of what seemed to be the beginning of the end for French Montana's career. Following this, a hilarious thread started where someone tweeted a Squid Games meme saying, "For the next game, you need to name 5 French Montana songs without features." French Montana then responded to this tweet with like 14 of his own songs, with the top reply being, "All you proved is that French Montana is the only person that can name 5 solo French Montana songs." Then French Montana proceeded to have a Twitter meltdown, just spamming about how people have amnesia and are forgetting all of the amazing albums that he had given them. But it turns out though that this meltdown and the entire idea that the listeners have amnesia was actually just promo for his album, They Got Amnesia. But no, that's not the embarrassing album I'm talking about. All of this controversy led to when French Montana released his album Mac and Cheese 5 in 2024. But he didn't just release one version of the album. He released multiple versions of every single song.
Now, what French Montana did was not just release Mac and Cheese 5, but he released it again, and again, and again, and again, and again. And if these 6 versions of the album were not enough to get your attention on streaming services, don't worry, because French then went on to release every version of the album's 21 songs as singles.
Part of the reason he did this is so that it would show up a bunch on every featured artist's Spotify page. And on top of that, he released a 126 song version of the album called Mac and Cheese 5 Versions. One person tweeted, "This looks like a cry for help. Like, damn, you must really need some streams." It was really just a sad attempt for him to boost his streams and his album sales, which is crazy because the only way I heard about this album was from this controversy. And after all that, he only sold 34K first week, which was more than his last 2 albums, so it's not that bad if it weren't for another scam that he was alleged in to boost his sales. Right before Mac and Cheese 5 dropped, he released vinyls for pre-order that were only $5. And a lot of people wanted some $5 vinyl because that's pretty cheap. So he did a decent amount of sales. According to Billboard, for these sales to count, they would have to be shipped by the album's release date. A Twitter user by the name of Dro said, "French Montana sold vinyl records on his site for $5 pre-orders back in January. With all the albums needing to be shipped on release date to count towards sales, it seems almost everyone that purchased it has had it delivered to a random address. This seems to be a case of fake shipping confirmations in order to boost sales numbers for the album." A lot of people responded to this tweet saying that the same thing happened to them, that their record was supposedly delivered but to some random ass location. So basically what this means is French's team had a bunch of fake shipping confirmations made just to get the sales in. This album was really one of the most embarrassing album rollouts and marketing gimmicks and scams that I've ever seen. I've talked about it on this channel a couple times, not gonna lie, but I'm just so blown away that he did this that I had to talk about it again. And coupled with everything else I talked about that he did before this may have been the final nail in the coffin for French Montana's career. And while of course it is cringy to release an album full of hundreds of songs, Logic may have dropped an even cringier album. When Logic came out back in the day releasing mixtapes, he became very popular among fans of rap. His debut studio album Under Pressure was a huge success, and many hip-hop fans believe that this was the best album Logic had ever released even to this day. He was known for his lyrics and his own confidence in his lyrical abilities, but Logic also had a few problems. One of the things is that a lot of critics such as Anthony Fantano thought Logic wore his inspirations on his sleeve a bit too much, basically saying he didn't bring anything new to the table. I mean, there's even a video online titled "Logic Stealing from Kendrick Lamar for 5 minutes Straight," and I've watched it. It's kind of true, but this wasn't a big enough issue to really damage Logic's career. He continued releasing music, dropping projects like The Incredible True Story and Bobby Tarantino, and then he released his biggest album ever, Everybody. This album and the track 1-800 in particular were insanely successful, with the project debuting at #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. 1-800 also went 8 times platinum, which is just insane. But this is where the other problem comes into play, and it's that a lot of hip-hop fans found Logic corny. 1-800 in particular was a song about suicide prevention, which isn't bad at all, but many thought that the execution of the song was corny. And a lot of the other tracks on the album were about how Logic is, if you didn't know, biracial. And they clowned him so much for it on this album that it fueled his want to talk about it even more. There's even compilations of Logic talking about his biracialness all over YouTube.
Blood is a slave and a master. It's like the devil playing spades with the pastor.
I'm black and white, but racism I still cannot evade.
Cole's biracial, Drake's biracial, Obama's biracial.
My father's black, yeah.
And your mom is white.
Yep.
But he was born with the white privilege. Man, what the fuck is that? White people told me as a child, as a little boy playing with his toys, I should be ashamed to be black. And some black people look ashamed when I rap. Like my great granddaddy didn't take a whip to the back.
Okay. Now, from first impression, though, you look white.
After Everybody, Logic sort of kept digging himself a deeper hole when it came to dropping songs or doing things that fans viewed as corny. This culminated on Royce da 5'9's Caterpillar remix, where Logic kind of just lost it when it came to this topic.
Yeah, so I can't play the clip because of copyright, but if you guys want to just read the lyrics, it's pretty rough, man. I can't lie here.
Clearly, Logic was very insecure about all of the corny accusations and people making fun of him for talking about him being biracial. And I believe that this insecurity is what resulted in the album Confessions of a Dangerous Mind. Confessions of a Dangerous Mind was released in May of 2019, and hip-hop fans really did not like this album. It came out a couple months after Supermarket, which was a soundtrack Logic made to a novel he wrote, and that album was also bad, but I'm not really counting it for this video because it was a soundtrack and it wasn't really a rap album. Regardless, Confessions of the Dangerous Mind did fairly well commercially, selling 80,000 first week and going #1. That's because, in my opinion, Logic does have a very strong core fan base. However, a lot of fans, including many of his diehard fans, were not into this album. I personally was pretty into Logic at this time. I liked Incredible True Story, Under Pressure, stuff like that. And the first single he put out for this album was good, and then the entire rest of the album just kind of derailed and was not, it was pretty bad.
Oh, you know I keep a glove. Boss up like Lando. The moment y'all been waiting for.
No one's been waiting for this moment.
And there are a few promising instrumentals on the record, but nothing that outshines the severe averageness of Logic's verses and his hooks. Logic's worst rap album, again, by a very large margin, in my opinion. I'm feeling a strong 1 to a light 2 on this thing.
He said things on this album like, I ain't bipolar, Kanye make me wish I was, which a lot of people weren't happy about. And on the hook of the song Bobby, he said, who sell out arenas, who spit at the meanest, who's biracial only in his penis. A lot of fans were pretty disappointed by this project. One fan said, Logic in 2014, I'm not defined by the sales of my first week, because in my mind the only way I fail is if my verse weak. Logic in 2019, I don't give a damn about lyrics. Another fan said, I think his passion has just kind of ran out. You can sort of tell he already said all he has to say in his previous albums. This album is also the 11th worst rated on Rate Your Music. If you don't know, Rate Your Music is kind of where all the little internet Anthony Fantanos go to rate albums, so their opinion isn't law, but it does go to show that a lot of people didn't like this project. Also, this same year, Logic said on a French Montana song, 1-800 then I kill the pussy who can relate. Fans were not happy that Logic made a lighthearted joke about his very serious song about suicide. So this year and album in particular were a terrible look for Logic, and it actually resulted in him retiring from the music industry. And clearly all of this negativity wasn't good for his mental health. I mean, I probably wouldn't feel too good if Joe Budden did me like this either.
Logic, I beg of you, join me in retirement. Never step near a recording device again. Be allergic to microphones. Promise your fans nothing. Don't go to the studio ever again. You are the worst, yo.
But at least Logic's album did well commercially, because Smokepurpp did so bad commercially that the entire internet bullied him for it. Smokepurpp is a rapper who really blew up in the shadow of Lil Pump, although he did have some hits on SoundCloud like his song Audi. Just like Lil Pump though, Smokepurpp was one of the many buzzing Florida rappers and even worked with artists like X. And after his hit song Audi, he followed up with his mixtape Dead Star that debuted at 42 on the Billboard 200 with features from artists like Travis Scott and Chief Keef. He even became a XXL freshman in 2018 and was featured in one of the worst ciphers of all time. But after that, Smokepurpp really struggled to continue making waves. Other than his feature on Costa Rica, which to be honest was outshined by many other guest verses, he didn't really have many hits. Don't get me wrong, he definitely had some big songs throughout his career, but his career just wasn't showing much longevity. And just like French Montana, many of his songs were carried by the features. One thing that hinted towards Smokepurpp's downward spiral was his freestyle on Tim Westwood in 2019, which if you haven't heard was terrible.
I'm a motherfucking stoner. I'm a motherfucking boner. I got a motherfucking boner. Yeah, my effing from the bus, I got a boner.
He claims that he was just having fun, but that didn't stop the entire internet from making fun of him for years to come. This video has a whopping 70,000 dislikes, and they even had to turn off the comments. And even to this day, 6 years later, people are still making fun of him for this. About a month after that, Smokepurpp posted on his Instagram story. First they said I'm falling off. Then their new excuse was we want old perp. Made the whole Florida jit like old mosh pit perp. And now those same people are acting like they knew I was about to turn back up like this. I'm streaming crazy and my music going up more than ever. Basically, he was denying that he fell off, said he was doing better than ever before, and then trying to promote his next album, Florida Jit. But people saw right through this, and one of the top comments is, bro can't accept the fact that he fell off so hard, so he keeps lying to himself. And this really goes to show, because shortly after this, Smokepurpp released his album, Florida Jit. This album came out and sold only 4,700 copies, and less than 130 digital albums were sold as well. 4,700 copies, if you don't know, is very low, especially from an established artist who has hit Billboard before and had features from big names like Denzel Curry, Rick Ross, Jack Harlow, Lil Pump, and Young Nudy. He got clowned into oblivion on the internet, with people saying things like the album went triple plastic or double cardboard. He got clowned so much that he even played into the joke and said, another free project on the way. This album was extremely embarrassing and Twitter was all over him, and coupled with the freestyle, things weren't really looking good for Purpp. He really wouldn't be talked about much until 2022, and it wasn't for a good reason. A video was posted online of Smokepurpp performing a show to a crowd that looked like it was about 20 people. Like the internet does, everyone began making fun of him online. Someone in his Instagram comments asked him, is it true that you only had a few people at some show? I saw a video about it, I think. To which Purpp replied, yeah, there was a show that was pretty empty that I didn't have to do, but I'm gonna give my fans a show regardless always. I wouldn't be here without them. I think a lot of fans really liked this response, even though it was a show on his tour, so he definitely had to do it. Regardless, shortly after, Hello Yassine reported that Smokepurpp didn't show up to a show in Cleveland, and that the 20 people waiting for him were kicked out of the venue after requesting refunds. So after the flopping of Florida Jit, it was clearly pretty downhill for Purpp. There have been plenty of other embarrassing albums in rap, so let me know if you guys want a part 2, and let me know what you guys think the most embarrassing album in rap is as well, or other genres. Let me know about that too below. If you like this video, you might like my video about artists who stole their biggest songs, in which I cover some pretty interesting information that you might not have known about some of your possible favorite tracks. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. If you like, please leave a like or even consider subscribing. Other than that, it's been your boy Matty Balls, and I'll see you guys next time.